Ladies and gentlemen, what a treat that we have here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show here on Sportnarium. And the wrestling talk continues here because our guest is actually going to be back in the ring next week for the LWF, and a promotion that we've talked about here on the show in the past with the likes of the Asset Stephen Cross and Wildfire Nate Reese, who you hear mostly each week here on the Sports Report and on Sportnarium. And he's actually going to be involved in a match that has been long in the making. It is going to be on Slamaganza, July 31st. And of course, everybody can find out more information on all the LWF social media pages here. But he's definitely somebody here, our guest that we've been very excited to speak with for quite a while. We've wanted to make it happen. He is a scenario, no pun intended, that the world of professional wrestling is going to get to know here very quickly. And I would hope I'd be on the right side of that scenario. And he's definitely become one of my favorites. And without further ado, here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show, LWF wrestling star, the scenario, Nathan Gunn. My friend, how are you?
Introduction. I'm okay, my friend. How are you?
Do they give you these kind of introductions when they introduce you in the LWF?
Well, they give me quite an introduction because they've got an incredible bunch of talented people over there. But it's not quite as enthusiastic as yours, I've got to say.
Well, if I could get down there next week to Slamaganza, I'd be more than happy to introduce you, my friend. But in the meantime, you could always use the recorded version of this, and I'd be happy to give it to you. And obviously, my friend, it is a tremendous honor to have you on the show. This has been long in the making, and we've talked about the LWF in the past here, obviously, with the Asset Stephen Cross and Wildfire Nate Reese. We've got his own issues with the LWF, but you're actually going to be on the card here next week, and you're going to be in a match that has been long in the making between you and Dave Getzky. And this has definitely been going on here for a very long time. And for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportnarium, the scenario, Nathan Gunn, talk about what we can expect here next Saturday in your match that is finally going to happen between you and Dave Getzky.
You can expect a conflict like no other. There's going to be real violence. We have a disdain for David Getzky. He's just, he's not pie, and that's what the scenario is all about. He's all about the pie. He's all about the people. David Getzky is the complete opposite, and therefore I've got to teach him the pie people rules, and I'm going to have to take him to school. You have to take him to school, mate.
You're going to definitely take him to school. I have a very good feeling about this. But for a worldwide audience listening here on Sportnarium that may not be familiar on how this scenario all started, take me back to how this all happened and is going down here for next Saturday between you and David Getzky.
Well, we interacted in a few matches. I've never really liked his style. I don't like how he talks to the fans, he talks to the people. I'm not about that. And our interactions backstage have also always, treats me with the same disrespect he treats the people, and it's not on. And when I got into a rumble with him to a previous show before COVID, that low blow that he delivered, that was the final straw. I wanted my hands on him, and I wanted to teach him a lesson, and I wanted to show him that the scenario is he's not just your basic wrestler. He's no one to be trifled with, and I'm going to be going in there and like I said, I'm taking him to school.
You said something interesting here, the scenario, Nathan Gunn, and I want to talk about it because obviously we all know, especially from the different video packages on your social media and also the promo package that both of you cut on the LWF Facebook page, is that this has been simmering for a long time. This dates back to pre-COVID, and that's now 16 months. So we're talking about basically a year and a half when you guys didn't have the opportunity to square off with each other. Because of that unusual circumstance, has that made you think about this even more than, let's say, you would have? Let's say pre-COVID, maybe you guys would have had a match. I think we were looking at probably April or May of last year. So this conflict, who knows if it would have been continuing. But at this point, we've had a year and a half between you and him for the disdain that you have for him, it has not been resolved. How has COVID maybe shaped this feud and maybe your further hatred for him?
I think COVID's played a definite role. I think you're spot on. If I'd have got my hands on him 16 months ago, I think maybe the anger I feel for him would have subsided a little bit because I would have taught him that lesson. But the fact that I've had another 16 months to kind of think about things and see how he treats people, it's got me more focused and it's got me more ready to deliver this absolute beatdown to him. And you've seen him yourself. I'm sure he's a complainer, and he'll be complaining when I'm done with him as well. But he can't blame it on the scenario, baby.
That's why they call you the scenario. We call you the scenario here on this show. That's why we have a very good feeling that the scenario here is going to be a victory for Nathan Gunn. And of course, everybody can also follow the LWF on Instagram at LWF Training. You can like them on Facebook and find out why we're very excited about Slamaganza here on July 31st. And the scenario, Nathan Gunn, I got to ask you then for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportnarium, because we kind of just touched on it. We'll get back to the match between you and David Getsky, but it's been almost a year and a half since everybody has been back in the ring. I got to think that next Saturday is literally going to be a slamaganza just because you haven't seen everybody. You haven't been able to be in front of the fans. I mean, what's it going to be like for you to finally be back out there next Saturday?
Oh, absolutely, mate. I mean, being back in front of the party people, that's what I live for. That's what the scenario is. I live and breathe to be in front of fans, and it's going to be great to be back in front of them. The fact that they also get to witness me beat some respect to David Getz.
And we know that you are definitely going to give him what he's long been overdue. And I got to think also that you've used training here throughout COVID, maybe as a motivation that you want to get back in the ring here with David Getsky. Because if you think about it in some ways, maybe the scenario, Nathan Gunn, this actually worked to your advantage because you had all this time to train and prepare. And looking at how you've approached this, you're in shape. You're ready to go here. I mean, in a way, do you think maybe the time between the last time you were in the ring up until next Saturday when you finally get back out there, that maybe you used the time to your advantage and its advantage scenario, Nathan Gunn?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think I did use this time wisely. Dave's probably used this time to complain and whine, as that's generally what he does. But that's not what the scenario is about. I put in the work because, quite frankly, I can't afford not to. I can't afford to be going in there and being shown up by Dave. That's just that. Now that'd be an embarrassing scenario, quite frankly.
I have a feeling that we're not going to be embarrassed in this scenario. I have a very good feeling that the scenario Nathan Gunn is going to come out on top here with the victory here in the LWF. That's why we're very excited about what the LWF here has brought to the table. And I got to think also the scenario Nathan Gunn that everybody here in the promotion is going to be watching this match closely more than some other matches here. I mean, it's a great card, but I think this match has a little more to it than some of the other matches here, just because of the history that the two of you have. Talk to me about your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, mate. I mean, we go way back. I mean, this has got, with the addition of COVID, it's got to be the longest professional wrestling build in history now. We've been waiting to get our hands on each other for a long time because this has been simmering for a long time. And that card is 100% great. You're right, there's some amazing matches on that. The championship match in particular is going to be very good. But me and Dave is something special and something raw.
Absolutely. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very good feeling that the entire card here is going to be special, but this match here is going to be a little bit more special between the scenario Nathan Gunn and David Getsky here. We are watching this match here very closely along with the rest of them, and of course you can follow the LWF on Instagram, you can like them on Facebook and find out why we're extremely excited about Slamaganza here. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportnarium, the Reverend Tom Bryson. We are talking with the scenario Nathan Gunn here, and I want everyone everybody to follow Sportnarium on Instagram at Sportnarium. You can like us on Facebook at Sportnarium Radio. Twitter, you can like us at Sportnarium WW. You can listen to us anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on SportnariumRadio.com. And you can catch the Sports Report from Friday to Sunday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. UK time on SportnariumRadio.com, along with a number of other great shows, including a few wrestling shows here, like the Sit Down Marks, who just spoke with the Natural Born Fighter, RP Davis, the Wrestle Rewind podcast, and Pipe Bomb podcast. We've got some great wrestling content here for the wrestling fans. Make sure you check those out. Also go to 1310 Apparel, and you can like 1310 Apparel on Facebook at 1310 Apparel. Instagram, you can follow them at 1310 Apparel. Twitter, you can follow them at 1310 APP. You can go to 1310apparel.bigcartel.com, where you can get a 30% discount. Brought to you by the Sports Report, Sportnarium, and Josh over at 1310 Apparel. You can buy whatever you like, 30% off, and we cannot wait till we see a Scenario Nathan Gunn shirt possibly over at 1310 Apparel. So make sure you get over there to 1310 Apparel and find out all the great things that they are doing. And we are talking all things related to the LWF and professional wrestling star, the Scenario Nathan Gunn. And the Scenario Nathan Gunn, we've talked a little bit about this match between you and David Getsky, and we'll get back to it in a little while. But for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportnarium, I was curious, and what got you into wrestling?
I loved wrestling as a kid. Grew up in the Attitude Era, so it's you've got some great wrestling there, haven't you? And I always kind of wanted to give it a try. Life took over for a while, and I thought to myself, life's too short. The Scenario needs to have a go at this. I had a go, and the rest is history, as they say.
It's something interesting, and I want to go back to it because we've had on a few wrestlers on the show here that, no pun intended, had a similar scenario. One of those wrestlers I think about is the Cumbrian Outlaw, Rick Marcus, and Sheriff Steele, who didn't start their careers right away. For example, like a Two-Bit or a Lucas Neon or Will Carter, who we've had on the show, where they were pretty much from the minute they were born, they were going to be wrestlers. You, on the other hand, had some different things that got in the way when it came to life. Again, very similar to the Cumbrian Outlaw, Rick Marcus, or Sheriff Steele. And what was that like getting into it? Maybe not where, like, again, Two-Bit, Lucas Neon, Will Carter were training at 15 or 16. You didn't do that. I mean, does that maybe make you appreciate your time in the ring more because you didn't start out right away? You had other things that got in the way?
Absolutely, yeah. I appreciate every second I'm in the ring, and those guys you mentioned, such as Two-Bit, absolutely excellent wrestlers, and it's great to work with them in the ring because they're such talented young dudes. But yeah, I appreciate every moment because I have that little bit more of a life experience, if you will.
Do you feel like outside the ring, let's say maybe some of those younger wrestlers who might have maybe more experience or about the same amount of experience that you have in the ring, maybe they come to you maybe for certain questions or certain advice, maybe outside the ring, that in a way kind of evens things out for maybe the lack of experience that you have in the ring? It could be anybody. Do you ever find that at all when you're training or being involved out there, whether it's for the LWF or anywhere else? Do you ever find maybe that conversation come up, or maybe that kind of evens things out between maybe the lack of experience that you might have in terms of your matches under your belt versus your life experiences? Is that something that ever comes up?
I don't think it comes up too much, mate. I think with wrestling and training with this great bunch of people, excluding of course David Getzke, is I think training with this great group of people is I think we all just look out for each other, and I think we all just want the best for each other, mate. There's no kind of moment where I think I've needed to impart advice, and nobody's really kind of not to say that we don't try and help each other if we can, of course we do, but I don't think there's been like big moments. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. And I've seen here throughout the video packages, not just from your social media, but again, a couple of guys who are on the show here pretty regularly. That's the Asset Stephen Cross and Wildfire Nate Reese. That training, I think everybody's appreciated a little bit more here, especially now as lockdowns have ended in the UK, especially, and everybody's gotten the ability to be back in the ring with each other and preparing for this huge event coming up here next Saturday for Slam Maganza. But has training been maybe a little bit more more special than it would have been, let's say, last year or pre-COVID, just because of everything that you guys went through in the UK. What you guys went through in the UK, I think, was far worse than what we went through in the States. And obviously, we've talked with a number of the different wrestlers in the UK, many of them that you've been in the ring with, many of them that I'm sure, on a personal level and a firsthand basis. I mean, has training here the last few months been extra special because of everything that you guys went through in the UK?
Absolutely, yeah. Like that wrestling feeling. Wrestling is it's magic when you love it like we do. So to be back after such a torrid time away is it's very special. And to be back with a great bunch of people and great training staff, and then to be preparing for a show such as Slamaganza, it's a very special feeling, mate. Yeah.
I want to ask you this question because it's something that I've kind of thought about in talking with the different wrestlers here throughout the UK. And we had a referee on, I'm sure you know him, Scott Bell, very close to Reese and Rogan. And he actually worked throughout most of the pandemic because there was a few wrestling companies out there that were able to go about this without fans. Obviously, there are some companies out there in the UK that are bigger than others. We've seen, obviously, Progress and NXT UK and a few others that have been able to continue in front of no fans, a studio, and they're able to continue what they were offering pre-pandemic. But I kind of think the scenario, and talk to me about your thoughts on this. I would rather have returned when fans could attend at full capacity, or at least a reasonable close to capacity, because I don't know if I'd want to go out there and be back in the ring and not be able to feed off that energy and channel that adrenaline that you'd have. I had heard Tommy Dreamer talk a few months ago when he was wrestling Rich Swann for the Impact World title. And he said usually he would wait for the fans to give him kind of that comeback, to get his wind beneath him and be able to finish the match and build off that. But he didn't have that. So he was kind of like spitting dust almost. He was getting tired. He was losing a breath. And I could imagine as a wrestler, you wouldn't want to go out there, or it'd be very difficult to be able to go out there and have no noise, no crowd, none of that energy in the building. I mean, maybe it was for the better that you guys aren't returning until you have fans. I mean, talk to me about your thoughts on all that.
Look, I've got nothing but respect for the companies that still were putting on shows during the pandemic. It's a difficult time, but I think we can agree that the fans are the most special element of professional wrestling, and that them being there, especially for me, they bring the party. They create the scenario, and they are the most special element.
That's why we can't wait to see the party go down next Saturday, the LWF Slamaganza. It is going to be on, and we know that the Scenario Nathan Gunn is going to be a huge part of that. And the Scenario Nathan Gunn, I got to bring them up because we talk with them each week here on this show, and we talk about different things, whether it's in the world of MMA or professional wrestling. And one of them I know you have a lot of experience in the ring with is Wildfire Nate Reese, who is probably safe to say is the elder statesman when it comes to the LWF, and at least his experience in the ring. And obviously, huge shout out to Wildfire Nate Reese, as we'll be talking with him once again on next week's show. But I was curious for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportnarium, and what's it like being in the ring with Wildfire Nate Reese?
Well, it is an absolute, I think you put it beautifully just there. He is and he's a very, very talented wrestler. And as well as that, he's also an absolutely lovely man. So, I can't speak highly enough about Nate Reese.
What do you learn from a guy like that who's had a long career in the ring? I mean, here's a guy that's basically been wrestling for about 15 years. So he's a guy that, in terms of his ring experience, is kind of like the general out there. If you think about it in terms of what he's been through, types of matches. I mean, how much do you talk to somebody like that and ask them certain questions? Or you see this a lot where younger wrestlers will ask the veteran wrestlers, hey, can you watch my match and maybe give me a few pointers on how I can improve and what I can do differently on? When it comes to a Wildfire Nate Reese, is that something that you do or ask him to maybe watch your matches or maybe give you some different critiques or pointers? I mean, talk to me about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I believe Nate Reese has has watched a few of my matches. We have discussed before little pointers, little things that he's picked up on. He thinks maybe I could do a bit differently. Maybe I could do something else there. And that kind of feedback is great from a guy with his experience. So yeah, no, it's invaluable at times, his experience.
Absolutely. And his knowledge about professional wrestling, I mean, I know he says I have more knowledge than in maybe trivia, but in terms of his sheer ability to just recall events and recall matches, I mean, the scenario Nathan Gunn, when it comes to scenarios, I think Wildfire Nate Reese can pretty much memorize almost every scenario that certain professional wrestlers have been in the ring with. So certainly we won't test your trivia or knowledge when it comes to certain professional wrestlers, but we'll certainly give a huge shout out to Wildfire Nate Reese in the meantime. But somebody else that I'd be curious your thoughts on, I know you have a little bit less experience in the ring with him, but I'm sure you're familiar with him, and that's the asset Stephen Cross. And I would definitely want to bring the asset Stephen Cross to the party when it comes to his sheer strength, his sheer ability in the ring. And you want to talk about guys that work a certain style that are almost similar to, let's say, a Cesaro or a Bret the Hitman Hart, or even a little bit of Brock Lesnar, Ken Shamrock. I kind of think that the asset Stephen Cross takes all of them and puts it into one package for what he can do in the ring. I mean, talk to me about the asset Stephen Cross and what's he like in watching him from afar in the ring.
He's a great wrestler. He's an absolute brawler, a bruiser. He's a very dangerous man. I've had 2 encounters with him within the ring. They were brutal encounters. Of course, he did throw a low blow in there, which didn't help the brutal feeling. But he's a very brutal individual, and he's nobody to be trifled with. He's a dangerous man.
No pun intended. And listen, the scenario Nathan Gunn, if it happens again, just let us know and we'll cut his mic off. If that does happen again, we'll either cut his mic off or we'll lower his mic. So hopefully that doesn't happen again, but I can't blame you. In all seriousness, we love the asset Stephen Cross, and he is a man I would tread very lightly when it comes to getting in the ring with, because he is somebody, I mean, guy can throw a punch, the guy can move in the ring, and the guy is in phenomenal shape. I mean, you want to talk about wrestlers that are in shape. I mean, he was a bodybuilder, and he still looks like he could be a bodybuilder. So I want to make sure we recognize the asset Stephen Cross and what he brings to the table. So definitely want to acknowledge him. Yeah. I got to ask you also the scenario Nathan Gunn, in terms of the LWF, I mean, what has it meant to you to be able to wrestle for the LWF?
No, it's a great feeling. When I first made my debut there, it was a really special coming out from down that curve to a crowd full of the LWF faithful. So it means the absolute world to me to be in front of the party people and to put on the shows that we do. All of us, not just a beating. I'm going to give Dave every single person up and down the card that puts on the show, because they love the crowd, and the crowd shows that love back by turning on.
Absolutely. And this is the reasons why everybody needs to follow the LWF Instagram, like them on Facebook. And if you can, I know we're probably almost sold out at this point, the scenario Nathan Gunn, and I'm sure everybody wants to see you kick the living crap out of David Getsky. But if you can, find a way to show up next Saturday, LWF Slamaganza, because it is going to be a party, and it is going to be a great party when the scenario Nathan Gunn beats the living daylights out of David Getsky. And this is why we're very honored to have him here on the Sports Report to talk all things related to his career and also his upcoming match with David Getsky here for a few more minutes. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportnarium Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce, and we're talking all things related to the career of the scenario Nathan Gunn and also his upcoming match here next Saturday against David Getsky, part of LWF Slamaganza. And the scenario Nathan Gunn, I got to ask you, for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportnarium, because I saw that you were training recently with somebody that we've talked about here quite a bit in the past on the Sports Report and on Sportnarium Radio, and that is Chris Ridgway. Again, one of the premier wrestlers, not just in the UK, but in the world. So I got to ask you, what did you get from that experience in being in the ring with a Chris Ridgway not too long ago?
Well, it's when you're wrestling in general, you're surrounded by great professional athletes. You get in the ring with somebody like Chris Ridgway, it's another level. The way he moves, his ability in the ring, his wrestling mind is just on another level.
When you speak with a wrestler like a Chris Ridgway, I got to think it's even different than speaking with a Wildfire Nate Reese, because here's a guy that he's wrestled pretty much everywhere you can and has been in the ring with major names. I mean, I have to think you're picking his brain and asking him question after question.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, it's just another level when you get to train with somebody with such experience, with somebody with such ability, getting in the ring with him and just going through even basic motions, basic movements. You feel that you are performing them at a high level.
Well, I know one thing. We are going to see the scenario Nathan Gunn at a level that we've never seen him before when it comes to next week's match with him and David Getsky, which the wrestling world has been talking about and has been long waiting to see. And I think the scenario Nathan Gunn made a very good point because this might actually be the longest running feud in all of professional wrestling. I hadn't thought about it, and we had the crack staff do some research, and I think the scenario Nathan Gunn clearly knows what he's talking about because I can't think of another feud that's been going on as long as this one. So this is going to definitely be worth getting out there and seeing this match. And we'll certainly, I'm sure, recap it after next Saturday and along with the rest of the matches here on this outstanding card. And I want to ask you then, when it comes to the match between you and David Getsky, is there one or two keys for you here when it comes to this match? I mean, is there anything in particular? Now, don't tell us what you're going to do. Don't tell us how you're going to beat him. But is there something important that you need to keep an eye on when it comes to David Getsky in this match next Saturday?
Well, look, I've made no secret that David Getsky is a tremendous athlete. It's just his attitude I can't stand. You know, in the ring, he's very competent. He knows what he's doing. He's a little, he's a little slimy. I got to keep an eye on him. I've got to make sure he doesn't, do anything untoward to ruin this pie. But quite frankly, I think I've got his number. I think I'm in his head. And he said, you didn't want to spoil it, if you will, but I'll be hitting him with the Gunn guarantee for the 1, 2, 3. I can guarantee you that.
Well, we know that you're going to get the 1, 2, 3. That we know. Listen, we know that you're going to beat him next Saturday, but we certainly don't. If there's anything you're working on, we certainly don't want to have you tip your hand on it because we know that a lot of people listening to this, we are on the radio. So we certainly know that Mr. Getsky could find a way to certainly listen to this. So we want to make sure that we don't have you tip your hand at all, any way, shape, or form. But I also wanted to ask you here the scenario, Nathan Gunn, before we get your closing thoughts here and ask you a few more things here about this important match. I mean, what are your goals here for 2021?
Well, obviously, like you've touched upon earlier, I'm back in the ring with some absolute legends of wrestling. So my goals are to really get back into a strong wrestling mindset, to get in better shape, and to get on as many shows as I possibly can. Because the scenario, this party needs to really pick up.
We're sure that many wrestling companies out there across the world want the scenario Nathan Gunn back out there in the ring. And that's why we're very excited to see him finally back out there next Saturday. And scenario Nathan Gunn, I wanted to ask you this question before I get your closing thoughts. And I know it's been a long time since you've been able to step out there and have a match. And I know this feud is the longest running feud out there. I know we've seen the packages. We know the history between the two of you, but what's that going to feel like when you're introduced out there and you finally get that opportunity to step in the ring and hear the crowd? Is it going to feel extra special than it normally would? I mean, talk to me about what's going to go through your mind when you step out from the curtain, walk into the ring, hear your entrance music, hear the ring introduction of your name. What's that going to be like?
Every time the scenario steps in front of a crowd, it's special. But this is a 16-month culmination. It's even longer in terms of the culmination between finally fixing the issues between me and David Getsky. And when I've beaten that respect into them, they will be fixed. When I hear my music go and they call my name out, the scenario is going to take a step out from behind that curtain and he's just going to soak it in. He's going to have a second with his party people. He's going to feel that energy, feel that live crowd atmosphere. He's going to get in the ring and take it to David Getsky.
David Getsky, my friend, I don't think you know what is coming to you because the scenario Nathan Gunn might be a party person, but I don't think that this is going to be a party. This is going to be a war, and I don't think you're going to be prepared for what's coming to you, my friend, because the scenario Nathan Gunn, the only scenario here is going to be a victory for Nathan Gunn in the LWF and the universe there. You are in for a treat. You are in for a victory party, a victory celebration. So I am sure there is going to be a party after you win the war, my friend. And that's why, once again, everybody needs to go out, find out more information on the LWF next Saturday, Slamaganza. Go to Instagram, go to Facebook, find out more information, not only on the scenario Nathan Gunn and his his match with David Getsky, but the rest of the card here. And that's why it's a tremendous honor to have him here on the Sports Report and talk all things related to his career. The scenario, Nathan Gunn, I want to ask you this last question. I always like to ask it to all of my guests that come on the show here. And is there one or two moments that stand out most in your career so far?
Yeah, tough question that. Thinking of those moments. Well, I think one in particular is, you touched upon it earlier, is being in the ring with Tom Thurwell and Nate Reese as my tag partners. That was an absolute honour. Both incredible wrestlers. And in terms of other things, looking forward and tagging with my boy Tony Rock, that is also something. So those are two moments, I think, one for the future and one for the past.
I like that answer because you're the first one that we've had on here. We've been doing this now for almost 3 years. It actually said future. I mean, you think about moments, right? Everybody automatically thinks to the past, but the moments that you might have, the one or two moments that stand out, I actually would have to agree with you, would probably be in the future. And obviously, you kicking the crap out of David Getsky, I'm sure will be one of those moments, but I'm glad that you answered past and future. So that was actually a great way to put it. And this is why everybody needs to follow you. Also, most importantly, all social media outlets out there, and especially on Instagram, where you can see all the great things that the scenario Nathan Gunn is doing. And that's why we're very honored to have had you on the show. I know it's been a long time coming, so we're very happy to have made that happen here. And it's been a long time, like I said, coming. And on Instagram, you can follow the scenario Nathan Gunn at Pro Nathan Gunn. That's at Pro Nathan Gunn, and find out why he is one of the premier pro wrestlers around. Also, the LWF is on Instagram at LWF Training. But for you, my friend, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you any closing thoughts. As always, Plug War listeners can get in touch with you and keep up to date with all the great things that you're doing, and anything you want to say out there, David Getsky, to your fans, anybody in the LWF that's listening, I want to turn it over to you. I can't thank you enough, so please plug any of your social media. That can be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Anything you want to say on behalf of this match, please do. And I can't thank you enough, and the floor is yours.
Well, you touched on it there, mate. Best way to follow Nathan Gunn and keep up with what I'm doing is Pro Nathan Gunn on Instagram. In terms of talking the match, I mean, we've touched upon it a lot. Yes, he's going to get what's coming to him. I mean, he walks around like he's the real deal, but everyone's real until they step into the ring with a scenario.
Ladies and gentlemen, he was short, sweet, and to the point. David Getsky, you got another thing coming, to quote Judas Priest. So I cannot wait to watch this match. We cannot wait to recap it, and we're looking forward to the rest of the great card here. Next Saturday, we know the Synergy is a part of that card. They're no stranger to the show. They're friends of ours. So a lot of our friends are on this show, although interestingly enough, we won't ask you on Wildfire Nate Reese because we know that he's not a part of the card. Very odd about that, but that's for another time, for another conversation. I'm sure we'll continue to get more updates from the LWF and Wildfire Nate Reese on that. But for you, my friend, I cannot thank you enough. I'm looking forward to next Saturday. I'm looking forward to having you back on and recapping the match and the big victory that you were going to have against David Getsky, and finally put him to bed here when it comes to what he's been doing here to the LWF roster. And congratulations on all the success. Congratulations on getting back out in the ring finally. And we'll talk with you soon, my friend.
Thank you very much, mate. Good talking to you. Absolute pleasure.
As we're here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show with LWF Pro Wrestling Star, the scenario Nathan Gunn, who's in a big match upcoming next Saturday for the LWF Slamaganza against David Getsky, as I am the host of the Sports Report, the number one global sports show, and the station manager here of Sportnarium Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And stay tuned for brand new music from Exodus Murphy, last week's guest. We got a brand new EP out called The Process, so stay tuned for that brand new music from Exodus Murphy, plus brand new music from Jeff Oakes and the Soul Town Orchestra, as we were just with pro wrestling star, the scenario Nathan Gunn, to talk his upcoming match here next Saturday and his return to the ring for the first time since COVID against David Getsky, as I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportnarium, the Reverend Tom Bryce. So stay tuned for brand new music from Exodus Murphy, followed by Jeff Oakes, as I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportnarium, the Reverend Tom Bryce, as we were just with pro wrestler, the scenario Nathan Gunn.